welcome everyone to the March 4th, 2024 City Council work session. Ask that everyone please silence all electronic devices. We'll go right into our agenda. Item A is 2024 Federal Advocacy Agenda. At this time, we'll call on Assistant City Manager Rachel Kelly, and I think we have Jennifer Emo on Zoom. Is that right?
We do. Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to go over our proposed 2024 federal priorities. Annually, we put this before the City Council in consultation with Ferguson Group and our lobbyist, Emo. We have come up with the agenda in your packet with consultations with department heads on issues at the federal level that might affect the city, and that's regulatory issues, things we want the Ferguson Group to be on the lookout for, or projects that that could be funded in some way by federal grants, earmarks, or other opportunities. So if you don't mind, I will let Jennifer walk quickly through the agenda items. You can ask any questions or get any more information about those from her. And I'll pass it off to you. Thank you, Jennifer.
All right, thanks, Rachel. I appreciate it. Mayor, nice to see you again, and nice to see many of you in the room. I'm Jennifer Emo with Ferguson Group, and I have the pleasure of serving as the city's federal lobbyist. Really appreciate the opportunity to work with you all as you advance some of your local priorities at the federal level. Rachel mentioned that we kind of focus on really sort of three areas. It's legislative, regulatory, and funding. And so that you'll see that throughout the federal agenda. So if it's okay with you all, I will share my screen and put the agenda up. Let's just make sure that this works. Can you guys see that?
No.
It's working on
Yes.
it. There we go.
Yeah, we'll see it. Okay, super. Excellent. I'm not going to go through line by line, but just kind of give you an idea of the highlight too, some of the things that we've added. A lot of this, again, as Rachel mentioned, we update this federal agenda each year. So some of these issues are holdover issues. There are updates to some of these issues, and of course, we've got new projects included as well. The Western Electric project is a big priority for the city. We've worked with DOD in sort of determining what the next steps are and ensuring that we have the best path forward for that property. You'll see, and what I've done is, in addition to what we had last year, what's highlighted is what's new. So just so you all know. One of the things that we talked about when I was in the city a few weeks ago was perhaps the opportunity to be the lead agency, the city to be the lead agency, which may give you a little bit more flexibility to access funds for cleanup and development, etc. So, that's not something that we're going to be able to fix immediately. It's part of the long-term program, but we did want to include that also in the federal agenda. Affordable housing is as a worker for communities all over. Really looking for affordable workforce housing, ensuring that the people that are working in Burlington can afford to live in Burlington, and making sure that all the tools are available to ensure that you can build this affordable workforce housing in your community. And so we actually, of course, always in the annual appropriations process, always request increased or at least level funding for the Community Development Block Grant Program, as well as home funds. There's obviously, as you all know, been issues with the home program there locally, and there's efforts to work with HUD to get designated as a lead agency to a new consortium to receive home funds, so you don't go any further time without being able to access home funds. So I know that work that is in the works now. We're waiting for information from the HUD's Office of General Counsel before we can kind of determine what the next steps are. We also actually have a letter of support from the mayor and to the 2 Senate offices on the House passed tax bill. There was a bipartisan tax bill that was passed in the House at the end of January, trying to get movement of that particular bill in the Senate. What is very interesting and helpful to communities like Burlington is that it includes it includes some reforms to the low-income housing tax credit program and really kind of expands the opportunity to use LIHTC, which incentivizes developers to build affordable housing. So we're awaiting Senate action there. I talked with the mayor extensively about issues surrounding your unsheltered homeless population, and really trying to figure out, all right, so if it's not always just finding a shelter for these individuals. There's a lot of issues that surround why a person or a family is homeless, and some of that can be from substance abuse or mental health issues, and so of course, in addition to access to that affordable housing. So wanted to put that also on the agenda after the conversation that I had with the mayor, just that we want to make sure that your delegation knows that this is an issue in Burlington and something that we want to stay on top of. Every community is looking to improve, walkability, livability. When I was in Burlington, Rachel and I went to lunch in your downtown area, and it's awesome what you're doing in that Main Street area, creating that real walkable area where people are going to want to congregate. We had requested funds in the fiscal year 2024 appropriations process for a streetscape and utility project. Unfortunately, that was not advanced in the House or Senate, but I think that is one of the projects that we will try to advance in the upcoming appropriations process. Also, just dealing with pedestrian safety, we work with the Burlington Grand MPO to secure a planning grant under the Safe Streets and Roads for All program. So the next step is implementation. So that will be a continued priority until we can get actually money. Once the action plan is created, we get money to actually do the recommended actions. And working with Bob Patterson and your management, of course, emerging contaminants, PFAS, a significant issue for communities all over the country, and it is an issue that we continue to monitor. There's new reports that come out every single day about where we are with PFAS and emerging contaminants. I will say a significant amount of funding was included in the bipartisan infrastructure law for drinking water as it relates to addressing emerging contaminants. The issue is we don't have this federal standard, has not been really approved. So, North Carolina DEQ, I mean, they can't actually put those monies out on the street yet because we don't really know to what the appropriate levels are, or the legal levels. They've got to figure that out in the courts first. So know that that's a big issue there locally. We are also monitoring the linked transit system and the transit development plan and facility study. There may be an opportunity to even secure funding for the transit facility in upcoming grant opportunities through the Federal Transit Administration. So that is an issue that we are monitoring. The next two, we had long conversations with the mayor and Craig Nolan and Rachel about potentially looking at funding opportunities for rural retreat road extension as well as Tucker Street interchange. So we were talking about possibly looking into DOT's RAISE grant program, which used to be billed, which was Tiger. It's kind of gone through several iterations depending on which administration it comes under, but it may be, we were talking about potentially extending rural retreat roads to connect Davidson and Springwood Parks and get to the, and then, access to the future Western Recreation Center. I just got notice that my internet's unstable. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to make sure I was like, I don't know what's happening. Okay, great. And then next is Tucker Street interchange, and it's my understanding there have been issues with that highway on basically putting that interchange where it is because of the for various reasons. And so I think what the goal is to talk to that highway and figure out, all right, why can't there be an interchange here at 85 and 40 at Tucker Street? There are certain rules, but there's exceptions to those rules, and we think that there's potential that we meet many of those exceptions at this point, and so we're going to engage with Fed Highway on that particular project. Parks and Rec, I mentioned the Western Rec Center already. I will say there's not a lot of opportunity to secure federal funds for this type of project. There may be some foundation grant opportunities, and frankly, I think one of the things that we could be most helpful with is not necessarily the money for the bricks and mortar, like the building of the rec center, but maybe even some of the programmatic, helping with some of the programming within the rec center. So, brick and mortar is tough to get federal funds for. So information and technology, just really looking at overall sort of broadband policies and principles and making sure that what's happening on the at the federal level is it has a positive impact on what you're doing there locally. And there are a number of bills that first of all, the bipartisan infrastructure law included significant amount of money for broadband deployment in areas that are underserved and unserved. And so, I don't think you have many areas that are necessarily unserved, but you have underserved areas. And I think as we're working and putting those broadband funding, the broadband money out on the street, I think what they're doing is they were kind of focusing first on unserved and then moving to underserved. And there's also digital equity issues, making sure it's affordable for all. So we just monitor those policies and procedures, policies and communicate them to your staff. There also in the bipartisan infrastructure law, there was a grant program called the State and Local Cybersecurity Grant Program that actually would each state applied, and then the states then sub-grant those funds out to down to the local level. And my understanding is there's an application pending, which is fantastic, to access that particular grant funding. It's federal money, but going again through the state. A big project that we've worked on, at least over the last year, is trying to secure funding for a CAD RMS project system and like a multi-jurisdictional CAD-RMS system. In the fiscal year 2024 appropriations, we actually submitted a request for $5 million for that program. And I will say just yesterday, Sunday afternoon, the congressional leaders actually released 6 appropriations bills that included the final earmarks for each of those bills that have to be passed before the end of this week, or else we are looking to a partial government shutdown, which nobody wants. Included in that final Commerce, Justice, Science appropriations bill is $963,300 for the CAD-RMS system. Again, Congresswoman Fucci requested $5 million. The Appropriations Subcommittee funded it at 9633, which is a very strange number, but I actually saw a number of projects that were pulled down from their request amount to this particular amount. We talked with Senator Tillis' office about if there may be an opportunity when you're conferencing these bills, if we can get a plus up, because it is a big project that, you know, sort of Burlington's taking the lead on. And I know that Senator Tillis' office did talk to the Senate Appropriations Committee. Unfortunately, that did not come to fruition, that we got a plus up. However, I think now we've really set the stage to perhaps get his support for fiscal year 2025. So while we have an earmark in 2024, fiscal year 2024, I recommend that we request funds again in fiscal year 2025. It's a significant, it's an expensive project, and I think we can get real support from Senator Tillis' office, and obviously Congresswoman Fucci was very supportive of that project. We have been working with Chief Lawrence on a assistance to firefighter grant application, requesting $1 million for self-contained breathing apparatus, so, you know, personal protective equipment. We will find out probably not until late summer if we were successful in accessing those AFG funds. There's, you know, we support taxes and municipal bonds, reinstatement and advance refunding, which basically allows you to refinance a bond at a lower interest rate without losing the tax exempt status. And right now, if you have a bond and you refinance that bond at a lower rate, like you would a mortgage or whatever, unfortunately you lose the tax exempt status. And so we're trying to get that reinstated. It's called advance refunding. That is a quick overview of the draft federal agenda. I'm most happy to answer any questions you may have or comments.
Any questions or comments for Rachel or Jim?
And if that's the case and there are no edits or modifications you'd like to see, we would request that this go on to our next consent agenda for approval, so Jennifer and her team can move forward with our federal advocacy goals.
Yeah, is that good, Jim?
Thank you for being
Thank you,
here,
Jennifer.
Jennifer.
Thank you, Jennifer.
It's my pleasure. Thank you all very much. Take care.
See ya. Okay, next item on the agenda is item B, wastewater PFAS remediation study. At this time, we'll recognize our Water Resources Director, Bob Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight we'll give you a short report on a wastewater PFAS study that we're looking at undertaking. I'll just give you a brief history of recap of what we've done regarding PFAS, summary of the study, some of the fiscal impacts, our recommendation to proceed and of course answer any questions as we go along. This will be primarily at the East Plant. That's an aerial of the East Plant. So background, of course, I think you're all familiar. We've talked about this several times. PFAS is a class of chemicals that are non-regulated from drinking water or wastewater side in the federal Safe Drinking Water Act or the Clean Water Act. There are pending EPA regulations for drinking water, which were issued last year. They were supposed to be finalized by the end of 2023. They haven't been finalized yet. We heard first quarter's almost over. I did hear that they have to be finalized by September, or they have to redo the whole shooting match. But anyways, that's on the water side. And of course on the wastewater side, since 2019 we've been looking at PFAS with a comprehensive study of our collection system, identifying sources, and working to get reductions of PFAS in our effluent. We know that once the drinking water regulations are adopted by the EPA, they'll begin working on some sort of wastewater regulations. So they're not imminent, but they're a couple years down the road. So research on different types of technology that could be implemented at the wastewater plants is important, and it will help us determine our plan of action going forward. And we can also help inform some regulatory decisions if we provide some appropriate information. Again, PFAS are organic chemicals, long chains of hydrogen atoms, ions, with fluoride attached on the bond, and that bond is one of the strongest chemical bonds and very hard to break. So that's why these chemicals last a long time, and they're known as forever chemicals. That presents lots of treatment challenges. So the highlights of our study that we're proposing, we'll work with Hazen and Sawyer, our engineering firm. They'll coordinate a study, do some sampling and analysis, and prepare a summary report. And the major components of this proposed study is some lab work or benchtop studies. We'll look at different coagulant aids and powdered absorbents, which will, I used the analogy before, like a golf ball has dimples. Picture a very small particle that has lots of surface area with lots of dimples. So that's kind of the premise, that PFAS attaches to those particles, and then you can capture the PFAS. There's different types of materials. There's granulated activated carbon. There's some novel absorbents that are called novel. They're being developed in the lab and being tested. So that's something that we'll look at, 5 different types of those, and to try to determine their specific efficacy with our wastewater. We'll also be doing some benchtop or lab testing of leachate, looking at a process called foam fractionization, which basically pumps air into a liquid and uses very fine bubbles to float and create foam, and the PFAS likes to adhere to that foam. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. And then we'll also do what's called some rapid small-scale column testing. So basically, these tests simulate what's occurs out in the plant, but on a very small scale. But they've been shown to be very effective to get better results in the lab to inform the subsequent testing, because the larger scale testing is more usually more costly. So anything we can do in the lab to help minimize or help maximize that information to make better decisions on what we do in our pilot testing is good. And then we'll also do, we're working with a research group out of UNC, Dr. Orlando Colonel, and a project called NC Pure, which received, I believe, they're part of $10 million that was funded through the state legislature to look at PFAS issues. We're working with them. They'll be also looking at some of these different absorbents and doing some column testing and pilot testing at the plants. We'll leverage their the work they're doing. And then another very interesting component of this process is we'll be working with a local firm, Invicta Water, who has developed a process that can capture, treat, and destroy PFAS. We're going to kind of prove that at a larger scale at the plant on a pilot program. So just a few pictures here to kind of explain what the difference is between the lab testing and the field testing. So what we do to test in the lab, we try to simulate those processes that occur at the water plant in what's called jar testing. So this is just a representation of what occurs at a water plant. We're very similar at a wastewater plant. Some sort of coagulation, sedimentation, treatment, and filtration. So this jar testing apparatus would take wastewater effluent. In each of those jars, you dose it with PFAS so that you know what your known concentrations are, or the lab folks will do that. And then they'll treat it with the different absorbents and see how it results in improvement or removal of PFAS. So you can take that information from the bench scale and adapt that to your field testing. Also through that process, if you recall, I talked about the foam fractionization treatment of leachate. So we'll take landfill leachate samples, run it through a foam fractionator, pump the air through it, capture that foam, and look at different studies. So that's all testing done in the lab scale at the bench scale. These are examples. On the left is an example of the rapid small scale column testing. As you can see, it's hard to get scale from this photo, but this is sitting on a lab bench, table this size. These are pumps, small pumps. Each of these columns are maybe an inch and a half diameter, a foot long. So it's not a large volume, but you can get very good information in the lab through this process. That scales up to, this is an example of what NC Pure will be using for their treatment process, their pilot testing at the plant. Each of these columns are about 10 feet tall and 6 inches in diameter. And that adapts to a larger size, which is more applicable, a better simulation of what occurs at the treatment plant. So through each of these processes, we'll feed it with a known solution of PFAS, run it through the different absorbents, test the effluent, and see what is most effective. And then, perhaps the most interesting part of this component with the local connection, working with Invicta Water. Their process uses foam fractionization and some photocatalytic destruction, or proposing some photocatalytic treatment to destroy PFAS. And their pilot test unit, and I guess their full-scale unit, is planned to be. It can be built in a building, but it's also used in a shipping container size, and it's modular so that you can kind of daisy chain these together based on your needs. So very flexible and scalable, and so they're hoping to pilot it here at Burlington and prove that it works. And so at this point, I'd like to introduce Jason Taylor, who's with Invicta, and give a little bit more information on that process.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. Jason Taylor, I'm one of the co-founders. Mark Edmond, one of the partners, is here with me tonight. We started as BN Nano in 2016, and we've been in the Holt Hosiery building on West Webb since about 2017. We started a second company, a spin-out basically of BN Nano, called Invicta Water, because our original product, which is a boron nitride nanocrystal, we found is very good for water treatment. And so we needed to find a way to inject that technology into the market, and found that it is really good for treating PFAS. And so with that, Invicta Water essentially was formed, and we take existing processes that are out there, commonly used, high volume, and proven out. And then we supplement those processes with new technologies that enable them to do really great things and solve really complicated problems. Our current focus is PFAS, as Bob was discussing. It's a hidden and pervasive health threat. We've used these things since the 1940s for our nonstick cooking pans, for our waterproof textiles, and our stain-proof carpets and stain-proof textiles, among other things. The health issues have been known to the manufacturers since the 1950s. However, public knowledge did not come about until the early 2000s. And since then, there's been a wide array of studies showing adverse health effects associated with these compounds. So we have developed a platform to address these compounds in water. And it consists of 3 stages. A stripping stage where the PFAS compounds are removed from the primary water stream. An enrichment stage where the concentration of PFAS is significantly increased while the water is significantly decreased. And then we have a destruction stage where those PFAS compounds are destroyed. Essentially, we can go from about 1 million gallons of water per day at the front end to only having to treat about 10 gallons per day in that destruction process. And so that will go on to there's 2 processes that we use that are common. The first being foam fractionation, as Bob had mentioned earlier. Foam fractionation is regularly used in aquaculture, fish farms, aquariums. Georgia Aquarium actually has 70 of these pieces of equipment installed. And essentially they blow a high volume of air bubbles into the water. And these contaminants tend to want to stick to those air bubbles. The air bubbles float up and you form what essentially looks like a foam, no different than soap foam that you would see. And that then contains all your contaminants. And then you can take that and treat it. And so that's the process we use. It's somewhat effective for PFAS as it has been used in the past, but what makes it much more effective now is the introduction of microbubble technology. So really, 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 really small bubbles creates a lot of surface area that attracts these PFAS compounds, which makes it much more effective at getting down to the low levels that the EPA is going to regulate to, and makes this process now much more effective for treating PFAS. And next. So the fractionation part creates this concentrate of foam, which then we treat with a UV purification system. Commonly used in water treatment facilities for destroying and killing germs, but in of itself does not address PFAS. The energy is a little bit of a different wavelength to the PFAS compounds. So what we do is introduce our technology, which is our boron nitride nanocrystals, and that acts as a photocatalyst that transfers that UV energy and converts it to another form, which enables it to destroy the PFAS compounds. So at the end, you no longer have a PFAS compound. The strong bonds Bob was talking about between the carbon and the fluorine are destroyed, and you end up with atomization of those compounds. And we have packaged that whole process, those 2 processes, into the size of shipping containers so that they can be very modular, easy to use, and relatively quick to deploy. We simply need power in, the water in, and then we provide clean water out. And the only other thing we need is level ground. So with that technology added to those existing processes, it enables us to handle the PFAS problem at significantly lower capital when compared to other existing filtration solutions, whether it be GAC, ion exchange resin, or reverse osmosis. The operating expense annually is significantly reduced because there's no waste product. We've destroyed the waste on site, and so there's no transportation of any adsorbents from the site to an incineration plant or to a landfill. Like I said, there's no waste. The footprint is significantly smaller. We use significantly less energy. We can start providing the treatment process in months, whereas a large plant for these other types of treatments take years to do. And you can add modules as you need them, rather than having to overbuild to estimate what your capacity is going to be needing 10 years down the road. With the platform we have generated, we're currently, like I said, focused on PFAS in wastewater, drinking water, landfill leachate, industrial and site remediation. But that platform is also applicable to other emerging contaminants, 1,4-dioxane, microplastics, and pharmaceuticals, among a few. And with that, I thank you for the opportunity for us to potentially help you guys with removing this chemical from our waters. Any questions?
So, the GAC systems that we've read about, we've studied, and there's some municipalities have, they create a product that's got to be removed, right? I mean, it's
Right, so the GAC, like the PFAS will adhere to the GAC, and then you've got to do something with the GAC. And typically for GAC, it can be recharged. For example, Cape Fear Public Utilities, that's what they're doing with their plant. They have 8, this is a water plant, they have 8 large filters. They have them staggered in operation when they put them in service, because they'll have to take one out of service. But when they have to take one out of service, it's 17 to 20 truckloads that have to go to Buffalo, is the nearest regeneration facility. Then they bring that back, and you lose about 25% of the GAC in that process, so you have to add to it. But it is a kind of a recyclable product, but you have to take it somewhere.
And then the other question I had, which was kind of addressed, obviously, we've been on the PFAS study train for 5 years, and now we've got 1,4-dioxane coming right behind it. We just had the issue with Pittsburgh. Do we think this will work for that? Is that where we're headed?
Yeah, Jason can answer that. They're doing a pilot with Pittsburgh.
So we'll be doing a very small pilot in Pittsburgh with the 1,4-dioxane and these other emerging contaminants. They are not always as attracted to the bubbles, but what you can do is put in an additive that will kind of mate with that dioxane, and that additive, when it locks in with that dioxane, will then bubble out altogether. And so there's a lot of work right now, both in the PFAS world and all these emerging contaminants world, of what these additives could be to evolve these contaminants from the water. And the way our system is set up, we've set it up in a way to think about that going down the road, so that what you don't see in our containers right now, but there's a series of fractionators. And so as not to waste that, whatever that additive might be. The first fractionator may take care of PFAS, the second fractionator may be dioxane, the third fractionator may be whatever the next emerging contaminant may be.
I mean, obviously, we started out talking about the wastewater side, but for us, we've got drinking water that's on the forefront of everybody's mind daily, but wastewater, because we've got those downstream that depend on us to do the right thing. So, and aren't there other municipalities that are working on this program? Is there anybody other than Pittsburgh that you guys are working with?
Not currently.
So the contaminant that you pull out, what is that in a substance, or what do you do? You said that you pull it out.
Yep. So it foams out, and so you end up with this foam that has the contaminant in it. And what we do, it then will collapse back into a liquid. And then we flow that liquid into our UV reactor system. And that UV light, in combination with our photocatalyst, will then destroy, essentially, those compounds. And so the only thing you're left with are atoms. You no longer have the chain of molecules.
This is like physics all over again.
Yeah, it's a combination of physics and chemistry.
Yes.
So unlike the GAC, that's a recycle process. So if you use that system, you're having to move it, keep them together, and move them, take them thousands of miles away in order to recycle them.
Yes, and in this case, if we're on the drinking water side, the numbers, when I tell people this, they get a little like, wow. So for 1 million gallons, you have like 1 gram of PFAS that you're trying to get out. That's like a valve like this big. And that's what you're trying to remove from 1 million gallons. And so the problem with GAC or ion exchange resin, now you've got this 1 gram, but you've got to move 1 million pounds of GAC to get it recycled to destroy, that million that generates or that 1 gram that generates every 1 million gallons of water. And so the great thing about foam fractionation, and whether you go with us or somebody else or whoever, foam fractionation is a great process because it takes that 1 million gallons and it reduces it down to a very manageable level of water that contains that small amount of PFAS. Now, on the wastewater side, the number's a little bit higher, so it's going to be more than 1 gram, but it's still the same concept.
So for the residents who are concerned now about the PFAS and the knowledge of now knowing that it's a threat, could be potentially a threat to our health, so is there any filter that the residents can actually put in their own homes? I've heard of like the carbon, and you had mentioned another chemical for some type of process, oxy.
So there's ion exchange resin, which is a lot like
Osmosis,
and then reverse osmosis.
Yes.
Yeah,
So is that
most
true?
home treatment systems are reverse osmosis or carbon filters, and they're varying levels of effectiveness.
Varying levels.
Yes.
Yeah, the carbon filter systems, just like in the large systems, are very similar. You have to replace them frequently for the PFAS effectively to be captured. And what that frequency is depends on a lot of things.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So, to do this project, we're looking at an approximate budget of about $1 million. The General Assembly appropriated $500,000 to the City of Burlington in the last budget bill, specifically for PFAS remediation. Our local delegation had this project in mind when they allocated that. There would be a $500,000 city match. So that $1 million would cover each of those laboratory studies, the Sawyer engineering fees, lab costs, and the pilot program with Invicta. And most of the pilot with NC Pure is covered through the other grant, but we would have some miscellaneous costs of the plant to run some piping and whatnot to make that project work. So it is a big sum of money, but it's, in my opinion, it's money well spent to look at where we need to go in the future. Burlington has been, as we talked about, been on the forefront of our PFAS studies and identifying sources and trying to minimize. This continues to put us, in that leadership role, so that we can not only inform our decisions, but help to, as I said before, gather information to maybe help inform the regulatory approach. Our request would be to add a budget amendment on council's agenda for tomorrow to approve the financing for this project. We will come back later. We'll submit an application to DEQ. They'll approve the scope of the project. We'll come back later with and they'll award the money for the $500,000 grant, and we'll come back with a resolution to accept that funding. This will be the first stage of getting that
responsibility with monitoring or anything? What are they asking us to do?
That's what and that's part of the delay that we've had, because this was a grant allocation specifically to look at PFAS, so it's really outside of their normal DEQ concept. So we've been working with them directly, and we think that we've got a good handle on what they want us to do now. So again, I apologize.
Leverage that
Yeah.
funding to
Right.
get the comprehensive.
And this will allow us to go ahead and move forward by doing the budget amendment and get it really going as quickly as possible.
Well, I appreciate the information, and I certainly support it, but, and we went out and toured the plant, saw sort of, this was back a year ago, maybe, give or take, when we did that, way before we got to where we're at today. But the question I have, obviously, there's lawsuits pending, there's class action suit that we've talked about, or whether or not we go independent. The things that we're spending along the way, is that recoverable, and that all of those things are going to add up if we are the recipient of some funding? Wouldn't it make sense that?
So I think that would be potentially recoverable costs, depending on how that.
Let's keep good records.
Bob, help us with other communities. I know there's some maybe advanced or not, but how throughout the state, or throughout the country, what's the status of this in terms of how do we compare with other municipalities?
So on the wastewater side, I think we're ahead of most municipalities. Nobody's really been looking at it to the depth that we have. On the water side, there are some states, Michigan and others, have gone ahead of the EPA and enacted their own rules. So on the drinking water side, some states have already moved forward, and water systems have had to implement upgrades. It's my understanding with the proposed federal regulations for drinking water that about half the drinking water systems in the country will be looking at some sort of capital project upgrade of significant dollars. And I think those numbers are similar in North Carolina.
Quick question, Bob. On the horizon, when will we know if we're going to be some new regulations about levels? You have any forecast for that?
So we've been told, first we were told by the end of 2023, the drinking water rules will be issued. They haven't been yet. They're still in the Office of Budget Management, or whatever the federal level organization is. We've been told first quarter, so we're a month away from the end of first quarter. So it could be any time between now and summer, I would think, that the drinking water regulations will be finalized. Wastewater will be following once they get the water regulations finalized, and another hindrance on the wastewater side was we never had an approved testing method for PFAS in wastewater, because it's more difficult. There's so many other organic compounds in wastewater that there's interference, so that it's taken them a while to really hone in and develop those laboratory test methods. Those are in the process of being finalized and will be within the next couple of months to be finalized. So the wastewater regulations will follow within, I would say, probably a year to 2 years.
So at that point, we'll have some idea of what we're shooting for.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, is everybody comfortable with the path that we're on? And that's what they ask is, will be a pending resolution at some point.
Yes, sir. We'll do the budget amendment from water and sewer fund.
Okay.
Tomorrow.
Okay.
Bob, how about class action suits? Whether it's from individuals or cities, being in file jail on this?
I think that's still working its way through. And they extended the deadline to opt back into the lawsuits. They're waiting to see how many municipalities or how many water systems decide to throw their hat back in versus trying to get more money than
I don't think they had as many takers in the class action as they thought they would, so they wanted to tap everybody on the shoulders. Are you sure?
Yeah, I think so. Mr. Huffman may be able to expand on that a little more.
Judge Gergo and his office was terribly surprised at the number of folks that had opted out, and as a consequence of that, they've extended the period of time and not admonished, but certainly encouraged everybody's plaintiff's counsel to go back and go over the procedures and such with their clients. We've done that with Mr. Calamato, and we're fine with our initial decision.
And depending on your size, it might be beneficial.
That's correct.
But obviously, our needs are much greater than normal, so, than average.
And as Patterson indicated, we are unusual in the sense that we have so much, we've had about 40 years of testing under our belt now, 3.5 years of testing. So, and that's what so many of these folks that have opted out did, is they really didn't have talent.
Yep, man, yeah. All right, good deal. So we'll add that, and then, let's see how it goes back. Thank you, guys. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. I feel like we all need a certificate now. Jason, thank you. Next item, item C, is a review of enhanced downtown services. This time we'll recognize Erin Nettles, our Burlington Downtown Corporation Manager, and Police Chief Alan DePaul.
Good evening. Since you are so into the chemistry, I thought I'd take you further in. This time, chemistry of a great team in downtown with our downtown enhanced services. I'm here to give you just kind of a reminder of what we've been doing for our downtown enhanced services. As you can see our aerial view, it looks great from that angle. This group began in 2022 at the request of council. We have formed a group that is made up of multiple departments within the city that all do overlapping work to enhance downtown. That group meets monthly. And at that meeting, we come together and we talk about what we've seen, what we've heard, how we can address it, any new ideas we might have learned from other cities, what we can do. But it includes cemetery and grounds, downtown economic development, the police department, public works, recreation, and parks. If we have something that falls into another department, we reach out and tap them to help us as well. But this is who meets regularly once a month. Weekly, we have the downtown and our street team, which I'm calling our street team, our right now one full-time person who is dedicated to downtown from cemetery and grounds. We meet weekly to discuss any hot spots that have popped up, any events, any needs. He is there daily, seeing every inch of the MSD and can really give the best feedback of what he's seen. He is in direct contact with Captain Meisenbach here and the police department, and anything, whoever he needs, he's in contact with. But I work as a liaison with him to the different departments for help. We also have daily foot patrol by the police department, which happens several times a day, which we'll get into a little bit further down the presentation. We have 2 full-time staff, 1 part-time position dedicated to the enhanced services of downtown and the beautification and cleanliness. Some examples of the work that we've done. We've installed brighter street lights downtown, additional depot and amphitheater lighting, cameras. The crepe myrtles around the amphitheater have been removed to create better visibility into the depot area. Last year we pressure washed city facilities and public spaces downtown. This year we've actually received a grant to do power washing of the awnings for downtown. The planters are replanted by volunteers every spring and fall. That's one of the photos you see there. I should say volunteers and staff. And trash is picked up daily downtown, sidewalks are blown weekly, shrubbery and trees are pruned seasonally or as needed based on what we hear. Some of our project highlights, we've put more signage around the depot. We've got a procedure where we tag unattended property. So if we find something that's been left there, we put a note on it that says in 24 hours it will be thrown away if it's not removed. That has been working really well. Enforcing the no camping ordinance in downtown. We've locked the water spigots, we've turned off outdoor power, and some of the things that were attracting people to the depot area. Daily police foot patrol, which I mentioned earlier. Cameras have been added in and around the depot area specifically. We have a zero tolerance for violence and public drunkenness, and that goes for anywhere, not just downtown. Staff training program for the city employees that are interacting with unsheltered individuals is a work in progress right now because we recognize some of these city staff are not trained to be in that position. So the police department is working on a program for us there. And maybe I'll let Chief take over from here.
Yeah, absolutely, thank you. So downtown foot patrol is a really important component of reassuring the public that they're safe, maintaining positive relationships with the business owners, and then making sure that people who choose to violate the law are held accountable. We do it 3 times per day because of the increases in staffing that we've had as a result of council's investment. We're able to do that without overtime money. It just comes off the bottom line of staff hours. That physical footprint's really important for us, right? The proximity of the police department, of course, makes everybody downtown our neighbors. But we also have a pretty daily interaction with the folks that live downtown, walk their dogs downtown. You've heard from some of those folks. They've come to council and talked about those interactions. I'm reminded of a foot patrol that took place at 3:30 in the morning a couple weeks ago, and somebody out walking their dog ran into a police officer. It was a very positive encounter because they were, of course, reassured in that moment that the area was safe. It is working. We hear very positive things from businesses and from the public as it relates to police department's presence downtown. I think the other thing I'd just like to say too, Captain Meisenbach is here because in the police department, the issues in downtown, whatever they may be, are very important. This is one of the few projects that has a captain who's responsible for all of the different components of it, right? So that we're getting a very high level of oversight, we're getting quick responses to the needs of the public, and that's the other piece really that we kind of want to emphasize with Fix It Burlington as an example, as our primary means to communicate non-emergency concerns about downtown. We're looking at those every day. Staff is responding to those every day to make sure that the public sees that we are responsive to their inquiries and their needs. So I think I'll say that as it relates to Fix It Burlington and other issues downtown, seeing something and saying something remains to be very important. We've heard that repeatedly in our community. We want folks that are downtown that if they have an issue with something that they contact the right people. Fix It Burlington, if it's not an emergency. If it's an emergency, call 911. We're going to come. Fix It Burlington is the best way across all of the different issues because it goes to all the departments. The police will look at it. Parks and Rec will look at it. Grounds will look at it. Get it to the right people to solve the issues.
I'll give one further point on Fix It Burlington as well as we've had about 2,000 inputs from the public since its inception in April of 2023. Around 10 or 20 of those, it's kind of an estimate, pertains specifically to downtown. There's not a separate category for downtown, so you have to go through, and it's kind of a little harder to parse that detail out. But we've been looking at that. The large majority of them, we think, are right now mostly like reports of lawns or cars that are left abandoned in front of houses and things like that. But we really want to push that if it's not an emergency for downtown, that this is an example of what can be reported through this app. Okay, just a couple of things that I would add. our downtown stakeholders know this process. They know the foot patrol. They're excited to see the foot patrol. They know what they need to do. If they see anything or need anything addressed, they know to call a non-emergency number. They know to call 911. Of course, if there's an emergency, they know that they can connect myself or with the police department to get to the department that they need for their assistance. They've really been happy with this, and we've really seen the relationship grow. And they are the eyes and ears downtown all the time. Somebody is almost always down here from that community, and that's where we get a lot of feedback, and it is really positive from that group. They really like what we've done here. In another note, well, first of all, we should say, are there any questions?
Didn't we have a rash of activity with the homelessness back in January or February?
Yeah, it seems to be most of the people, most of the citizens that have contacted me is it centers around the library. Is that a hot spot?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's in a lot of ways for good cause. The library is a public space. Our library system in Alamance County really wants to be create an opportunity to help people. So they are very encouraging with our homeless population because they want folks to have access to education, to get a job, to have a safe place to be during the day. We've had in-person conversations, actually. Kevin Bosbach has had a number of them with the library about some of the concerns that the public brought up specifically. And we found that the library staff is very responsive to those concerns, certainly some of the things that they just didn't know the way that the ordinances function, as an example. And they've taken action to follow the ordinances and make sure that the right things are happening on the property. They're also one of the groups that we've spoken to about de-escalation and positive interactions with people who may be in crisis, and conducted that training, I think, a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, Tom? Because they're a member of our downtown community, the library staff. But you're absolutely right. There were some issues there. We believe that they've been primarily resolved.
I continue to hear about that church over next to Duncan Exxon, that people are sleeping there. And then I heard just last week about First Baptist Church, people sleeping there as well. Is that something we're looking into? Is that something?
Well, it's a conversation that we are familiar with those. We've had some conversation with some of the churches. They have all made the decision to allow people to sleep on their property as a gesture of goodwill. They know that they're providing cover, a reasonably safe place for people. We don't hear a lot of complaints from the churches. We have gotten complaints from churches when people have left trash, who have not been responsible about their bathroom activity and those sorts of things that have resulted in trespassing. The faith communities are really making their best judgment about allowing folks to be on their property or not.
Interesting thing.
But to your point, it's private property. So unless they're trespassing an individual, we have no authority.
And some of the churches have trespassed people specifically, or after issues. They've talked to them about, if you trash the property or something like that, then we're not going to allow you to be here anymore. And we, of course, have responded and trespassed those people.
And I don't want to get off subject because we're talking about downtown, but you get similar conversations about the interchanges on the interstate, and that's NCDOT property. So unless we're given authority, permission, guidance from NCDOT, we can't act independently.
What do you mean by, where are the people that you're referring to?
In the exchanges, in the interchanges.
Highway 62 is always to be on both sides.
They're camping in the trees and shrubs and
And so, as recently as yesterday afternoon, one of the assistant chiefs was driving his daughter somewhere and saw some people over in one of those medians, interchanges, I don't know what to call that public space. It's state property. Called some officers over to go talk to those folks and figure out who they were, whether they had permission to be there, they did not, and remind them that they weren't supposed to be on that property. And that's because the public has made us aware, and we have rather than some of the trash and refuse that's been left in those places.
If you're going on 40 East, at the 54 interchange going south, you'll see a small camp, but it is a large one on 40 East. Just before you get to Raleigh, you look to the right.
There's 40 tents in
Yeah, yeah.
there. Oh, wow.
I mean, it's there.
Right.
A carry, really is a carry exit
That's right.
is where it is. And
Very close to the airport.
yes, and actually, I recall having been in a meeting there a couple of years ago, and that was there then. So this is a different game. Back to the library, former mayor had indicated one time, 30 years ago, we had the same issue with the homeless, leaving the homeless shelter and then just escalating to the library. There was questions about would there be some transportation provided for these people to go somewhere, but there was nowhere technically for them to go. So it's really not a new problem. It's just one that we deal with in society.
You also, need to look at is the use allowed in the zoning district. So that's another, I think, filter you got to look at.
Say that again, no.
Well, because if a residential use is being used in a zoning district that's not allowed, then that could proliferate. And so you need to look at those things too, I think.
Yeah. And maybe we need to take a look at them and see if they're giving us the authority we need.
And I think there was also some camping issues on the library property that we've addressed as well. That is our property.
That was one of the issues that I talked to them specifically about. It's against the law to camp on city property, right? The ordinance specifies that. They just weren't aware of it. They took care of that themselves.
Any other questions?
Well,
Obviously, this is an issue that has multiple pieces to it, and it can't be readily solved in the blink of an eye, but I would encourage everybody involved to stay vigilant at it, because it is an important topic to our community, certainly to those that want to go downtown, take their children to the library, participate in downtown activities, Paramount activities, so forth and so on. So, thank you,
Plus
Chief.
our investment in downtown.
Say again?
Plus our investment,
Yeah.
we create everything.
And I really do want to thank the staff, the work and the coordination that's been done in there. And Morgan for her has done really a good job of making sure we try to address these issues and not let them slip through the cracks. So this is a continual effort that we're continuing to go forward.
Well, the effort been made to clean the sidewalks is substantial and very appreciated, because if you recall back a few years ago, that's a situation that almost got out of hand, and especially in late spring, early summer, throughout the summer, or early fall, so that's very appreciated.
One other downtown-related note that's actually pertaining to tomorrow night. We're going to be removing something from the agenda tomorrow. It was a request that we have put in for a lot closure for an event. The event's still taking place, but they've decided not to have it in parking lot 1, and I just wanted to give you that heads up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thanks, Gary. Thank you, Chief. Our next item, item D, is litter removal and cleanup efforts in Burlington. This time we'll recognize our Public Works Director, Gary Smith, and Stormwater Manager, Andy Clark. Good evening.
Thank you, Council, for having us here. Speaking of issues that cannot be solved in a blink of an eye, Water Resources and Public Works are here tonight to talk about the litter problem that Burlington is facing. But not just a problem that we all are aware of and we see every single day, but also what the not alone in this battle. This is a worldwide problem, but definitely is a nationwide problem as well. So definitely I want to highlight that. But not just talk about the issues, but also what staff has been doing for a while now and what we're currently doing. And we're implementing a wide variety of different programs and actions to tackle the issue. But we also want to discuss some proposals to implement a more holistic and sustainable abatement and management litter program in the city. So some of you may have heard of Keep America Beautiful, not the political campaign, which sounds very similar. Keep America Beautiful is a very strong, well-known, credible nonprofit organization. They aim to provide expertise and resources to communities to help beautify areas. That includes municipalities and other partners. They'll provide grants for the implementation of programs, just like having a type of litter campaign. But again, to highlight that litter is not just a problem in Burlington. In 2021, Keep America Beautiful released one of the largest studies on litter in the United States. And a couple of the key findings in that study, one was there was over 50 billion, 51.2 in particular, billion pieces of litter found along roadways and waterways. Another key component of that study was the majority of that litter was actually found along the waterways, along our streams and rivers. So, information that we can kind of move forward. But we know that this is not just a city problem, because when really researching and looking at the different programs offered through Keep America Beautiful, they have a presence in every single state in the United States. So, that tells me that their resources are going everywhere in the nation to tackle this problem. So, some current efforts, let's talk about that first. Some current efforts that we are currently doing. Stormwater, recreation and parks, public works, and police department. There's a lot of different departments within the city that are implementing a wide variety of different programs to help tackle the litter program, or litter issue. We do have, and this is a newer program we're trying to increase awareness to the public, but we have a litter kit program in stormwater. We have had some people take advantage of it, where we have already put together litter kits, and for people who have groups or just maybe as a family, they want to go out on a walk, pick up litter, they can contact us, and we arrange to get them all of their supplies. Whenever we have extra giveaways from previous cleanup events, they'll get a t-shirt. And John Vernon works very hard when I send him random pictures of groups of people to post on Facebook for us to make sure they get recognized. Stormwater also, we do hold 2 larger cleanup events. We always have one annual Alamance Creek cleanup, but we also try to hold one in the Service Creek watershed. And last year we had one in North Park. So we try to have, we always have Little Alamance Creek as part of that category for a B plan that we have committed to, but also we try to move that second one around. On top of that, we also offer anyone who would like to reach out and have their own group. Actually, my youngest son is here, but my oldest son just recently reached out and said, "Mom, will you hold a cleanup event for approximately 30 students from ACC on April 27th?" So anytime a group wants to reach out to us for a cleanup event, which happens very often, we will organize that. If staff can't make it during their time, we do provide all of the resources for them to do so. And a newer development that we are going to try is to install a litter trap in Little Alamance Creek proper City Park. We have the location chosen, and we knew we were going to try to tackle the litter problem, and right when we were just right in the middle of the conversations, Hall River Assembly reached out and said that they will pay for, install, and maintenance a litter trap that is in-stream structure, keeping wildlife in mind, but it captures litter, and then you remove that litter. But on top of that, they are taking data to see, just like the litter the litter study that came out from Keep America Beautiful, they're taking data to see, okay, what is the main source of litter? What is it? Styrofoam, is it cigarette butts? And that information can help Burlington really target our outreach in the stormwater program. We also, Stormwater Division, we partner with Stormwater Smart for the education, outreach, and public involvement components of our stormwater permit. And through that partnership, they put together a mass media campaign every year. This year happens to be litter. Mass media, but also direct education. Deciding to go into schools or go to camps, just have that direct contact. But a lot of times, that mass media, those campaigns, because it's a partnership with area municipalities, there's not a lot of space or time in those small, clips for the mass media to show the logos. So it's a lot of times advertised as Stormwater Smart and affiliates. So Burlington doesn't often get directly associated with some of that media that we may be seeing. So it's something that we're really going to try to work on as the Stormwater Division. Really try to work to not take away credibility from Stormwater Smart, because they're wonderful, but bring Burlington into the advertisement to let the public know that we are a part of this, and make sure there's not a disconnect there. Recreation and parks, almost every cleanup that I have, I partner with Rex and Parks. Either I'm holding the cleanup at their park, one of their parks, or I run low on supplies and they have supplies, whatever it is, there's always some help there between Rex and Parks. And Public Works always helps if I need a trash truck, pick it up later. And then those are just some of the programs between Recreation and Parks and Stormwater. One actually that I didn't, I won't scare anybody by going off script here too much, but I was talking to Melissa Houston, Recreation and Parks, and she was telling me very nonchalantly about an effort that her and her staff recently did, and it was for the after-school programs that Burlington offers, Recreation and Parks. She would have staff go to those schools, bring all of the supplies, and as their activity for those after-school events, they would clean up around the school. And then she would, not only that, but then go to the principal of the school and say, this isn't something that you only have to do after school, we can come through school. So she said it like it wasn't a big deal, but I think that is just a wonderful program that I didn't know was happening, and we would like to build that. So I definitely wanted to give a shout out. And I'm going to give one more shout out to Molly Ruiz, who she has been instrumental in helping me with trying to build a litter campaign in Burlington.
Right.
She's our part-time stormwater specialist. Thanks.
So as Aaron mentioned, we do have cemeteries and grounds. We have a staff member who helps with maintenance concerns downtown. We actually have a second employee that will be starting in the next couple of weeks, and he'll be assisting David downtown with addressing some of the maintenance issues. Litter is one of those issues. We do have a contract with a vendor to do landscaping and litter removal. Some of our major corridors, University Drive, Church Street, Maple Street, they help us with landscaping and litter removal. We're looking at increasing the number of intervals that they clean up when mowing season gets here, to try to pick up some of those items before they mow, just try to increase that frequency to help in some of our major corridors. Public Works, the way we address litter concerns now, we really do it on a case-by-case basis. We receive calls through Public Works, the city manager's office, and This council has contacted us directly to address some issues, and we typically send out a crew from solid waste to address these on a case-by-case basis. We also have staff in our streets division. Every Friday, they address some of our hotspot areas, and we'll show these. You can see they're spread out all over the city. It's not just one particular area. We have concerns very much so around the city. Each Friday, they will pick one of those areas and focus on those. I maintain a database so I can keep a regular watch on those to try to cut down on the number of calls and concerns from residents. We are currently, as you mentioned, we're working with the DOT now because they have some major issues in Guilford County, and it seems to be spreading this way, as you've noticed in some of our exits up the Mill Road. Just recently, exit 145, the Highway 49 exit, they're looking this week, particularly in that area, to clean those exits. They're going to remove some of the landscaping. Talked with a representative from the DOT. They are working to put some contracts in place. They're finding more hazardous materials at those exits, so cleaning those up has turned into a lot more than they anticipated. So they're helping us with that, and we're working directly with them on each one of our exits going into, I guess it's 141, 143, and 145 in particular. So they're working on those now. Yeah, this is just a little collection of kind of some of the things we're seeing. Unfortunately, the number of, we're seeing this more and more on a regular basis. It's unfortunate, and
Not the people, the trash.
no, we're very thankful for all the people in those pictures that are helping us with that effort.
So this, when we were meeting, staff was meeting just to really try to wrap our brains around litter as a problem in the city. One thing, actually, we took it from one of Bob's genius drawings that he does. If you ever notice him jotting things down, he's actually drawing pictures. They're very useful. We were trying to categorize, like, where are all the efforts currently? How can we combine the efforts and we approach this to where it can be sustainable, and we can actually get some motion. So we have roadways. So currently, city maintained roadways, which Gary touched on. Residents can report through Fix It Burlington. We are actually, that's being underutilized for litter, but we did work with Amanda Lloyd today to try to get a specific litter complaint section in there. So we're working with her to streamline it. It is ready. Okay. So she ran us a report just for last year. We were kind of curious. And litter-related reports, we only had about 8 through the year that through Fix It Burlington. So that's something that we're going to work on with our advertising and website to make sure residents know that this is a place, you can report this and staff can help. Roadways, Gary also mentioned Department of Transportation. If a resident or someone reports a litter issue along a NCDOT roadway, NCDOT has their own, very similar to Fix It Burlington process, where we can report it to DOT and they can track it and things like that, so it gets serviced. And then Gary also mentioned our contract with Living Landscapes, who through their mowing and median upkeep, they will pick up the dirt. Streams and waterways, stormwater programs, recreation and parks work together to address those issues on city property. It has become increasingly, stormwater has been made aware of the problems on private property whenever a resident has a stream that flows through their private property. Residents do want the city to come out and clean the stream. But unfortunately, we cannot do that. Our program's not set up yet to do that unless we implement a volunteer activity and have the staff to do so. litter trap in the streams, and then there's volunteer cleanup events. And then I had a link on here, but to save time, that's the link to just Stormwater Smart, one of our mass media litter campaigns. Parks and city-owned properties, recreation and parks has, and public works, they work together to make sure trash cans are being emptied on a regular basis, not blowing out. But Recreation and Parks also has an Adopt the Park program, and we actually just got Robinson Park adopted today. So we have an Adopt a Park program, and we'd like to, Stormwater Division would really like to partner with Adopt a Park and start having like Adopt a Street, Adopt a Stream, and make that, one big effort to attack litter. But then we also have those one-time cleanup groups, where there's groups that will call because they need service hours or would like to volunteer, would like an event. And that happens through Stormwater Division as well as Recreation and Parks. And then what happens when we have litter problems on private property? Those right now are currently being reported through Fix It Burlington, and then go to code enforcement. Again, once it's on private property, it becomes, we don't have a program robust enough for staff to go out in someone's yard and consistently pick up trash in the yard. So when we were evaluating our current efforts and thinking of possible solutions to implement, we were really looking at what to do in the right of way and in the streams where we have access.
As Amy mentioned, with the Fix It app, the report litter section has been added to the app and to the website. So hopefully that will make it a little easier for residents to report through the app and through the website. It'll also give us the ability to track, do some reporting. We see, maybe get a little more fine-tuned on where our problem areas are. So hopefully that was put in today and it's up and running. Those requests will come directly to Public Works, and then again we'll handle those on a case-by-case basis.
We pretty much covered this. Again, it's just the Fix It Burlington for the roadside litter, streets and sidewalks, then litter on private property is housing, yard property issues labeled as yard, junk, and trash through Fix It Burlington, and then NCDOT has their own reporting website. And typically, if it is on a roadway where it's DOT, staff of Burlington will usually input the issue for the resident. That way they don't have to go through that, and then maybe email them the tracking number. So moving forward, things we've discussed just, amongst staff is how can we work with the staff that we have now? Can we reallocate staff, shift some staff around to focus on citywide litter removal? We are having a employee-led litter cleanup event, Burlington Beats Litter, on April 26th. It'll be during work hours where Stormwater and Public Works will set up a supply table at City Park to allow employees throughout, devote a couple hours a day, come out, get your map, get your assigned area, here's your supplies, have something fun to give away, and then have them go out and pick up trash in public roadways and parks. Go ahead.
Yeah. Cover the partnership piece. We are looking the week of March 18th. Well, it's in March. We're going to actually have another. We've got a meeting with some of our local leaders. Glen Raven, New Leaf Society, a local church, NCDOT. We're going to meet to discuss collectively how we can address this issue. We're also inviting the county as well, because it's not just an issue here in the city. We see it out in the county as well. So we're going to meet collectively to try to brainstorm some ideas and things that we can do to help address this issue. So just thought about that.
No, that's great. And going off what you're saying as far as partnerships go, I think the way we're trying to approach this is how to let the community see that we as employees care about this community and DOT has a annual litter sweep that has gained a lot of momentum throughout the years. And Gary approached me with the great idea of like having this employee event during that week so that DOT is already committed to giving us some supplies that we need, things like that. So it's a good partnership, I think, that we can build upon. But then also, this will be an employee event, but we would like to advertise it as a like invitation to the public as well. Like, please come join your fellow city employees on April 26th. And then community partnerships. Gary named some partnerships that we are going to work on. But also there's Keep America Beautiful, even though it's a nationwide organization. They do have grants available, things like that we can reach out, but also Keep North Carolina Beautiful is another potential partnership. We are also going to look at our current online presence for litter. It wasn't very strong in the past as far as really targeting litter. It was more water quality as a whole and didn't really talk about litter. So we're looking at other municipalities' websites and their campaigns and going in. We're going to really streamline our litter process online. And the last slide this was a tough one to create because we want to make sure we're going in the right direction, but we don't want to get too deep before we have that direction. We did create just an outline of a comprehensive litter management plan. Some type of a plan that hopefully doesn't, just sit there on someone's desk, but a way that we can approach this as a sustainable long-term solution and what goes into that. But then, in order to do that, what resources do we need? But I think there needs to be a full evaluation, and we just kind of skim the surface of that evaluation. So we're here to really get some guidance from council on, we've recognized there's an issue. We are currently doing some things, and it's scattered. We're going to work on bringing that together as an effort to make it stronger, but we'd like some input on, what else can we do to approach this issue? What are our next steps in your eyes?
I appreciate you guys putting this together, and I'd ask Craig, could we come up with a more comprehensive plan? There's a lot of things the community wants, but there's only a handful that they demand or expect. Safety being one of them, and cleanliness being another. And I think there's a couple of dynamics going on here. One is we've got a lot of construction going on. We're very fortunate in the city of Burlington that we have a lot of construction. Some roadway, some economic development on the enterprise side, and then others just residential construction, and that generates a lot of extra trash and debris. But the other thing is, I've noticed it a lot, and I've noticed it more in the last 6 months than ever, is the number of things that are blowing out of trash trucks. And, that I hope if we see that, we're penal to those individuals. Because that's an important piece, and I saw it twice in one day. And, there's an enterprise responsibility too, to the industries that are picking up dumpsters, hauling debris off of construction sites, and they're just not being good stewards of it, and we need to penalize them if they don't. And nothing would tickle me more than to see a blue light behind the truck that just dumped 200 pounds of trash inside of it. And the other thing is, we have Fix It Burlington, and we can really appeal to the community to, if you see an area, let us know. But we've got code enforcement running around town. We've got inspections running around town. We've got fire staff running around town, Parks and Rec, PD. If we see something as staff members, let's target it. Let's let them know. Because we've got a lot of people that are running around with their eyes on the ball too, that could really give some good feedback. And I'd like to see staff use Fix It Burlington, because I'd like to see what that looks like from a statistical standpoint. Because, you know, if you ride down Flora Avenue right now, it makes you sick to see what it looks like. And that came from a trash truck. So I'm kind of curious what other council members have to say about that.
And I think this discussion is important right now because, you know, Mary, as you mentioned, how deep and how much assets do we want to put towards this as well, since we're coming up in budget time. If we're looking at a truly comprehensive plan, it may take some additional staffing for that. So we wanted to kind of get your input to say, if you saw something in the budget that you would not be shocked, or if you didn't want to see something in the budget moving forward.
I think everyone has a dog in the fight. You have the trash trucks that go by every single house in the city. And I said years ago, they should be able to report things that they see. We started off with the furniture on the front porches. Then we went to the signs. And everybody sees it. So just report it. We just need to come up with a comprehensive plan of how to report it.
Craig, the alternative is we're going to lose our city.
Right.
That's how important it is to me.
Right. Well, and we wanted to make sure that we felt like that was the direction. However, we didn't want you to be shocked if you saw a concerted effort and some money to look at such a plan. And because we've done a wonderful job being very reactive. When there is things that we see, if we get calls from council, if we get calls from the public, Gary's guys are usually out there the next day.
A lot of times it's the same thing.
Yeah, it really is. But it's one of those things, how do we make sure that we are proactive in dealing with this?
That's a great plan.
Yeah.
Right there was presented to mind. Let's move forward with it. Let's see what kind of, what we can pick up on out of that plan. And I'm not sure what it is. You asked how to expand it. Let's see if this works and then go forward.
I agree. I think in all due respect, I think you have already implemented everything that I could think of. I think definitely the media, the social media, the mass media, I think that's going to be helpful for addressing the issues and people being able to actually see how much is going on. I think you've done fantastic. I don't have anything to add to it at this point.
I would say I agree with the mayor 100%. If we don't move forward, we're going to lose our city. In parts, I'm afraid that we already have lost them.
We should all be very proud, and certainly being fully staffed on the PD is creating a safer city. And I think we've all seen the proactive narrative that's provided to us when there is an event. And I read the other day where there were some folks in the neighborhood came out clapping because we did what we were supposed to do to make that neighborhood safer. And this is just a logical extension of that. We're building some pride back in some areas that maybe lost it a little bit.
It's great.
And you do that with making them safer so people can get out and about. And then you do it by making them cleaner so that that pride elevates a little bit. And the next thing you know, that micro community has taken a new life of its own. And that is economic development that is not readily identifiable through a statistic, but it certainly is when you're sitting on somebody's front porch.
Gary, from a public works standpoint, when somebody brings a resident, brings some furniture or whatever they want to move out of their house to the curb. Conceptually then, if they bring that out, if their trash pickup's on Monday, if they do not call you guys, how do you all know it's there to be picked up before it creates an issue?
So when they service the container on your trash day, the driver has a way to, like a little iPad, and he can mark those locations. Now, if it gets set up after he services the container, it's pretty much so.
You got a waiting
Line on them, right? Or either someone sees it.
Well, the question is maybe even about publications, if the resident, if they indeed take something in the street, they could contact someone. So the city would know. Because you're right, if they come in on, they pick up on Monday, they put the furniture out on Tuesday, it could be the next Monday. And then some of the streets are not wide enough to take that.
information that they need in order to follow that protocol is available. And social media is the quickest and easiest financial way to get it done.
I have a quick question. I see signs from time to time they have adopt a street, adopt a highway. Will that work within the city? I know you've got.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's something, Recreation Parks already does adopt a park. And it's all part of a larger effort, adopt a effort. And we can just add into that. I don't think, in the past we've really had enough staff to support a full adopt a stream or adopt a street. But, we really talked about the accountability that placing someone's name on a sign underneath, especially on a roadway, especially on a street, when their name is on that sign, like, they don't want to see trash on it. I think that just goes towards...
I feel like my name's on all of them.
We could put your name on some.
That's not
Maybe like a face picture?
No.
The last community that I worked for, the city in Wayne County, they basically had city streets that were specifically adopt a city street. So, the DOT has the adopt a highway, but they went back and looked at their city streets and they had adopt a street with, the logo, adopt a street, and then who did that. So that may be an option for us as well.
I mean, I see, various groups, that with their name on it and adopted. I was just wondering because when I see litter, I see it along the streets, and if you had a group that was responsible for certain streets, it leaves it up to them and sort of encourage that.
We can look at that as an internal, city streets. The DOT does adopt highway groups now, but not on city streets.
Yeah, the big thing, the problem we have, I think, is that we have a lot of state streets in the city, but we're responsible for both the city and the state. So, we just have to take care of everything within the corporate boundaries. But anyway, adopt a highway, adopt a street type thing, that may help some.
You cut through streets are going to be always been an issue. Because connected cut through it, that's it, for kids. I'm doing that all the time.
And then, I think we don't need to necessarily stop at, our main veins of the roads. We could do adopt a community, we could structure it, I think, and be creative with it. I don't think we need to necessarily fit in a box with these programs. So I think Burlington's unique in a lot of ways. The programs that we create need to also be unique. So, as we're going through putting together everything that we're doing now, we're doing and evaluating it, but also potentially coming back to you and saying, okay, here's a plan. We can include, that evaluation and assessment of, how is Burlington unique and what it has a better chance of working here to really provoke that mentality of a clean city.
Well, I know Gary's team's done wonderful. We've had a hot spot that we've gone in and hit it pretty quick, but I think everybody understands. I think it's safe to say council's pretty committed that this is a priority.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you guys. Look, we're going in a little bit. Is everybody going to take a break? 5-minute break?
Let's move on a little bit more.
Okay, we'll keep going. Next item E. Burlington Graham NPO City of Burlington Demonstration Project Grant Award. This time, what about that? Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Getting there. Let's see. All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight I'd like to present to you the Burlington Graham Metropolitan Planning Organization, as well as with the City of Burlington. Applied and was awarded a demonstration grant to install 25 CCTV cameras at signalized intersections. Before I get into the grant, just wanted to recap on our last signal system upgrade, which this council invested $1.2 million for that. So I wanted to highlight some of the features that came out of that. One was a redundant fiber ring system. We previously had a bus system to where if it broke, everything down the line would fail, but now with this redundant fiber ring, fiber can break, it'll allow us to troubleshoot, and everything will still stay on. We actually installed a new video wall, which you can see here, with new monitors and desktops, as well as the 40 CCTV cameras, and our Centrac signal system, which you can see the map right here, which houses our 200 traffic signals. We can see the operation, we can run reports, diagnostics, and the breakdown of the majority of signals is obviously DOT. And we do have a maintenance agreement with Graham to control as well as maintain their signals. So some of the value of having a CCTV cameras, the first being troubleshooting. It also allows us to be active rather than reactive. We're transparent, so we do show and share the link with our public. And if I was to go there, brings up the usage policy. So I have two options. I can either click on a link here or go straight to the camera to view a feed. So right now I'm looking at, sorry about that, Webb and Medman. And so it'll actually run for about 15 to 18 seconds as far as the travel public can see. If I just want to review it again, I can just hit play. And one big thing to note is we do not record our cameras. We give this feed, like I said, to the public, as well as our Alamance County 911, as well as Burlington PD, have links to these feeds. And so, but again, we do not record. They have links to these feeds, and as they look for new housing, they would actually get these 25 locations as well as hyperlinks. So, and as part of the 2024 Safe Streets for All grant, it's administered by the U.S. DOT's Agency of Federal Highway Administration. As mentioned earlier, there's planning and demonstration grants, which is what we're going after, and then implementation. It requires a 20% local match. And some of the projects that have been awarded are safety plans, reducing emissions, and what we're going to look at is crashes. The map before you, we took 4 years worth of crash data and overlaid it on our streets, and we came up with 25 locations at our signalized intersections that currently do not have a CCTV camera. And we felt like this would be a good pilot project for the demonstration to see if we can help improve crashes or look at any kind of future projects to help improve crash rates at intersections. And then the metrics and evaluation, like I said, we're going to look at crash reduction. We'll review and submit crash data every quarter to FHWA, with the final report being at the end of it's going to be a 2-year period. If proven successful, We'll go after a future project region-wide. Region-wide for us would be continue to build out the network with additional cameras. The other agencies within the NPO can kind of piggyback off of what and as well as evaluate any additional safety factors. So we'll begin in the late summer of this year. It will have to go out to bid, so we'll be working on a request for proposals. It'll run for 2 years. We're looking at about 6 to 8 months for implementation, with a full year collecting data and preparing the report for FHWA. So we're seeking a budget amendment for just under $175,000. Again, that's a 80% share. So from the federal standpoint, it would be not quite $140,000, and our local match would be just under $35,000. And so we're asking to put that on tomorrow night's agenda.
Okay, any questions for Brian? Go.
Good.
Yeah, and there is a list of those intersections in the packet, so that everybody has that. That's good, thank you. Thank you. We'll get that added, Greg, as requested. Our next item, item F, is Priority Quarters Grant Program Update. This time we'll recognize Michael Taylor, our Business Retention and Expansion Manager. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, Council. Wanted to give you a quick brief update on a program that was implemented back in July of last year. It's a grant program focused on development of the priority corridors within the city of Burlington. It's been well received. Been very positive for the business community who have enjoyed the opportunities presented to them, and they have taken advantage of it. The program was first brought for council March of last year and laid out. The program was designed to encourage private non-residential investment, enhance the visual aesthetics of the city's priority corridors coming into and out of town, increase property values and long-term sustainability, as well as stimulate economic development through the creation of new jobs and new taxable investments. And the businesses along the corridors have really liked this. It's focused not necessarily on one area, but they can do internal and external improvements of their buildings and or their businesses. It's available to both. Don't have to necessarily just be a business owner, but you could own the building and take advantage of it and benefit of it as well. Established originally using the Economic Development Foundation funds that were set aside by the council. The grant is set up as a one-to-one match, up to $30,000. Total approved funds for the fiscal year is $300,000. So, quick math, you would see that if you approved all at a full rate, you would be able to do 10 projects. We really made a push in the summer, into the fall of last year. We posted heavily on social media. We continue to include it in our monthly newsletter from the Economic Development Department, as well as we did direct mail postcards, and we hosted 3 live events on the corridors themselves. One out on North Church Street at the Dream Center, one here at the City Hall, and then one out on between Webb and Maple Avenue at the Community Center and out on that side. These are the corridors. As you can see, they go out the primary avenues out of the city, which isn't a big mystery, but we know that we wanted to grow them, develop them, have a better aesthetic coming into the city as people were coming in and out. It's broken down. We have quarterly reviews, so we have 4 periods that we take applications. We've gone through 3 of them. Through those reviews, we've had 6 candidates. Of those, we have awarded all 6 of those. 2 of them were not complete 30,000 awards because of the projects they were trying to do, which didn't fall into our category, and or the size of the project they were doing didn't trigger the one-to-one match dollar-wise, so therefore we had some separation down. Out of those, 3 of the projects have been completed in entirety. 2 of them are parking lots that have really improved the aesthetics of the buildings, and then 1 was a roof on a structure that was a business who was relocating here from California, and they were able to come in, be able to use a building that had some significant issues going on, and kind of really rehab it and get it back into being an economic center for their business. Total grant awards so far have been $153,000 out of the $330,000 or $300,000 we have posted so far. The last period that we just went through, we had no candidates, but the reason we got that information fed back to us was that a lot of people were worried about planning for the rest of the year. It's early in the cycle. They didn't want to commit their dollars, so they were waiting to do it a little later. So one of the things that told us that we needed to be a little more proactive. We've got a good diversity, as you can see here. The yellow are the projects that are in process. One of them's a daycare center that actually bought the house next to it. It was totally rehabbing the entire house to make it an additional daycare facility. One is improving the windows in the side of the building down East Webb Avenue. And then the other ones, like I said, are parking lots, but then we have a restaurant that was the old Pizza Hut located out off of North Church Street. That was bought by a Hispanic individual who was going to open a restaurant there, and going from being a food truck to being a full-place established restaurant. So these are just some examples of what you got from this. Obviously, you can tell the pre and post and what we're seeing from that particular shopping center, as well as this one. One of the pluses on this is they redid the parking lot, and because they liked the look of the parking lot, they came back in and redid their own sign without using additional funds or making requests, because they liked the look and the cleanness of it. The one thing that we've heard from a lot of people who are putting these programs out and doing these is that they're trying to encourage those around them to improve their areas as well. So it's not just they're growing for their business, they want to see the whole area up improved for their whole service area. Our next steps with the grant is continuing into next year with the same criteria that we have for this year in terms of the dollar, the one-for-one match, and the total volume that we would have. We're going to continue to host additional educational programs so the community awareness is there, and we continue to build on that going into that. Including in that is the intensification of our online messaging. We will continue it in our newsletter, but doing other things outside of that, online and posting it and making it more prevalent. It is included on our website for the Economic Development Department from the City of Burlington, so it's there, but we're trying to intensify that message. And the last item that we're going to do, when you notice the first program, we had stopped where the blue lines are up on the top, going down the Maple Avenue corridor. And we have seen natural development in Starbucks and the 7-Eleven and Dunkin' Donuts all down that corridor on their own. So we're going to extend the program down from the end of Chapel Hill Street all the way down to Anthony, which is right there beside the Sheets, and the opportunity, hopefully, of getting some of the other people and businesses in that area to improve and to kind of match up and bring up that whole area to the same criteria of what the new buildings are looking there. So it's been a well-received program. It's been very positive for us, and we get a lot of good publication and a lot of good positive comments from the businesses who've taken advantage of it. So at this point, I'll open it up if you have any questions.
So we've got $300,000 budget.
Yes, sir.
We've used about half of it.
Yes, sir.
If we don't use it all in the fiscal year, do we roll it over? We can. Yes, sir. So I think the intentions of us setting this up is exactly what we're seeing. And, you know, having that little seed money to get it going. There's 2 things. This this is a great program, but then when you look at what our UDO has really accomplished on some of the development on Maple Avenue, with the standards that are set at UDO.
I tell you what, Maple Avenue is completely transformed south of East State.
Yeah.
And it's.
And it will migrate.
Yes, it really is. It has. It's a totally different situation.
And one of the drivers to that is community awareness, people being aware that the program is out there and knowing that they can take advantage of it, seeing it and hearing it from their relative other businesses around them, realizing they can capitalize on it, they're taking advantage of it.
Well, the development itself, the new development is so strikingly different than what was there. It's, as you go through it, it has to get your attention. And that's an important core. Points out.
Any questions from Michael or any?
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
Tell me a little bit about the application process. Is it very, very involved?
Actually, it's really a pretty streamlined program. There is an application they need to fill out. Really, basically, it's the information about them, about whoever owns the business, be it a corporation. If it is a business and not the business, they have, or the building owner, they have to have sign off from the building owner before they can make any changes, obviously, to their structures. And then the only other thing is asking if they're compliant with current taxes, there are no code violations or any of those, which we then check on ourselves as well. So it's really a quick and easy process to apply. We had meetings here, I guess back in October, and the meeting was at lunchtime, and by 2 o'clock that afternoon, we had 2 additional applications that had been submitted to us and completed in entirety that were not done before. So it's not a difficult or arduous process.
I agree. It's really a great program. I thought it was true because I couldn't remember exactly that the tenants can actually apply, but had to get the landowner to sign on the application.
That is correct. Can't make modifications to something you don't necessarily own or have agreement with. The only stipulation that we have in there is nonprofits are not eligible for the program, and therefore a building that has a nonprofit in there could be an issue. We've not run into that, but that's something we're cognizant of as we continue to review and improve as we go forward.
John?
Yep, great update.
Thank you.
Our next item, item G, Community Police Advisory Team, our CPET team, talking about the selection of appointments to fill vacancies. This time we recognize Chief Alan Maylock once again.
Good evening. So what we have before you, provided in packets is a series of applications for membership on Community Police Advisory Team. We currently have 4 vacancies. Included in that application packet is a request for 2 reappointments and 4 other new applicants. We're hoping to be able to fill these spots tomorrow evening. The changes that you made to the CPAT charter in September have worked in terms of helping to clarify how many people are there and are attending regularly. We know that participation is vitally important if we're going to get advice and guidance from the public. They have to attend. So that's what we're hoping to achieve tonight. And John, of course, is here for any guidance that you might have or questions that you might have and guidance you might need around.
Yes, we do know we're off cycle with respect to these appointments, but we wanted to make sure that we got as quickly as possible, so we didn't want them to lose momentum.
Absolutely.
I noticed you got 3 24s that have been coming vacant, in June, but you want to get this done tomorrow, okay?
Yes, sir. Exactly.
Well, I'm ready to do some appointments. I think we got 2, and I asked Alan directly, attendance has been a problem.
It has for some folks that are no longer on CPAT.
Okay, so the 2 names that you mentioned have got really excellent attendance records.
That's correct. Mr. Bowman and Mr. Smith are there.
I think that's 2 right there, Mayor, that we can, at least I would make that recommendation, and that's Bowman and Smith, and down to the other 2.
How many we're looking at? Four total, yes, sir. Bunny's one.
Bunny Smith.
And that's Ken Smith, right? Yeah.
There's two of them in there, isn't it? Is both of them on the list? Smith.
So we got those two, and now we're looking for two more, right?
Yes, sir. How about John Bloom?
I'm all for him.
John, you good with him?
Now, he is currently serving on traffic commission. Is that right?
Yes, I'm traffic commission right now.
So theoretically, we could, he would be eligible, but he'd have to resign from traffic commission. So we would have a vacancy until June, I guess, which may not be that big of an issue. I think we could.
I think we're okay. We've had some things there we can make it work.
Okay.
And if I can remember correctly, his first priority or first request was CPAP.
As I recall.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah. And then we were going to go through the reorg and whatnot, so we put him on traffic commission. So we'll reach out to him and we'll make that swap. Is that good?
That's good.
Assuming he still, he may all of a sudden decide he likes traffic, but if he does,
We'll be back up.
yeah, we'll build back.
Is that three?
That's three.
So Lorena, I think is definitely a great candidate. I worked with her through the Dream Center. I know that she was very interested. We turned her down. Well, you guys, I was a councilman. We originated, I think she applied in 2022. She wasn't.
That name rings a bell. I had her name down too. I mean, that's a good candidate, in my opinion.
But I'm torn because Ms. Mary Bozeman, I think she's been a little confused because she's contacted me several times, asking about her application. I think you and I had a conversation about it.
I've talked to her a couple times too about it.
And then I received this and I said it's the Housing Commission is what she
didn't want to do another one.
She didn't want to do
Another
application. So I did speak to her, and originally, when I called her, like, hey, Ms. Mary, I didn't see your CPAT application, but I saw your Housing Commission application. And she's like, well, I applied for both, and she wants to be on one of them.
Yes.
I do know that. But then we have Lorena. So we have a spot for one more. You make the decision, Wall.
Okay, I would say Lorena.
Yeah, Lorena.
Lorena's in.
Thank you for the opportunity. You know what?
I'm waiting for guidance on the housing commission.
Okay. So there's your four, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
That good?
I had one more other thing while I have the microphone I'd like to mention. This is a quick one. We got a verdict today in a criminal court trial in Alamance County Superior Court. It was an attempted murder case. The defendant was convicted. He's facing 28 years in prison. That was a Burlington case. It was a 2020 case where he attempted to kill his wife. During that incident, he was very dangerous for the officers that responded. He threw gas on him. He stabbed a police canine. He also attacked the officers that went in to arrest him. The city has a lot to be proud of. The professionalism that was demonstrated during the trial, a tremendous amount of testimony given, and then, of course, the bravery of the officers who took that action back in 2020. We don't talk publicly about the circumstances of things like that really before they go to trial. Everybody's got a right to a free or a fair, unbiased trial process. So I just wanted to mention that, just one other great thing that happened.
Well, congratulations. Okay, next item is item A, general obligation bond discussion. Tonight we have going over this City Manager Craig Honeycutt and our Chief Financial Officer, Pete Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. At the February City Council work session, Council asked staff to look at options for a proposed bond referendum for November. Specifically, we have identified two major categories, which you see on the screen: parks and recreation and roadway and transportation. If you see the projects listed under Parks and Rec, we basically have committed to two major projects, which is the Paramount at 11 million and the Maynard Aquatic Center that we would put $6 million towards. And again, that is basically making that a permanent structure. But also as part of recreation, and this has been on our priority needs list for a long time, specifically was mentioned during our master plan, was a Western Sportsplex complex, or Western Sportsplex, which is approximately $25 million. Again, so that's our recreation, but also during last year's budget discussion, council began discussion how we need to begin looking at our city's resurfacing and sidewalk maintenance and repair, since the last time that we had a resurfacing bond was 2006. So it is time. So we looked at resurfacing, and I appreciate Nolan and his staff. We've identified about $15 million to catch up on maintenance needs, and also sidewalk maintenance and repair to eliminate some hazards at $1.5 million. But also you'll see the downtown streetscape project. Again, we've gotten $10 million from the state for water and sewer. We've discussed with council about how this really is a transformational and generational project downtown. So we wanted to make sure we did it and did it right. However, to do that, it is going to take some additional funding. And at this point, we have projected that to be about $5 million. And if you look at all six projects combined, we're looking at about $63.5 million in general obligation bonds. Again, this is worst case scenario because we were asked, or the statutes basically say that you have to look at a percentage for the bond issuance at the last highest bond sale, GO bond sale, which is 5.344%. And we've had some discussion, or Peggy has, that would be much lower than that if we did go out to sell. The other issue on GO bonds is we don't have to have the debt all at one time. That can be issued over a 7-year time frame as well. Again, if you look at what we've kind of calculated at worst case, $10 million GO bond over a 20-year period is about a penny on the tax rate. So again, if we did everything and everything was worst case scenario, we would look at an additional, really almost 6.5 cent increase to pay for that debt service. One of the things that I want you to be aware as well is, as we talked about during the federal update, we're still looking for funds to try to fund the Paramount. We're still looking at funds to try to fund the streetscape program. So it is not something we would say, if you approve moving forward in this direction, we're going to say, well, we're done. We're not looking for any more funding or any additional options. We would still make that a priority moving forward. And if this is sort of what you were looking for as far as a project list, we've got a potential time frame. As you can see, we're really trying to decide what projects and kind of the framework we want to do. If we do or agree upon that, staff has a lot of work to do. And then, we're really building the framework to the house now. Once you build that framework, we got to put the drywall and all the appliances in. So we have May adopting the preliminary findings resolution, the projects, and then a public notice of intent to file an application with the LGC. In June, we would file an application with the LGC, and then we would also have do a publication of the bond orders and a notice of public hearing. And then July, City Council would conduct a public hearing on the proposed GO bonds, publication of final bond orders as adopted, and then a second notice published, the bond referendum, and then this would allow us to get the bonds on the ballot for November.
Can we go to the previous slide?
Yes, sir.
Couple of things, just to kind of segment it a little bit. With Paramount, we've worked on the $7.5 million piece of the Paramount, and
approved the design piece and whatnot. So obviously, that was a commitment that we made prior to coming up with a bond program, but we've got to finance it somehow. So it only makes sense to roll it into here. If you think about the secondary piece to the Paramount, the $3.5 billion, we have not made a decision on. And then obviously, Maynard Aquatic Center. So you're talking about $9.5 million between those two items. One is an emergent need if we wanted to address it, but we're really talking about those two projects possibly not going forward if we don't have some type of funding mechanism, such as a bond approval. The Sportsplex has been a 12-year discussion that I'm aware of, and the population is getting bigger, not smaller, the needs getting greater, not less, and we just had a new recreational park study that came out, and this facility was mentioned 9 times in there. I might be wrong, but I doubt it. And then the other things we've talked about, street resurfacing, catching up. We've done some catch up through fund balance the last 2 years, but this really gets us to another level. And then the streetscaping project downtown, obviously we're leveraging a lot of money that the state has put out there. We have allocated $982,000 towards downtown streetscaping already, but that was in the design phase. I think we talked about it when we had our, when I was looking back through the CAFR, I realized last year we had already allocated $982,000. We're picking up $500,000 from the state on Paramount.
Yes, sir.
Isn't that right?
Yes, sir. And we're going to ask more.
We're going to keep asking.
We're going to keep asking.
And we're going to have Jennifer ask.
Yes, sir.
So this is a list that we're going to hopefully back down a little bit with some other sources of money. But I want to talk about money for just a second. And when I met with staff on it, I tried to get my brain around it, because as I understand it, when we put this on a ballot, we now have to put down what the tax implication would be at the worst case scenario.
Yes, sir.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So, and that's just a requirement by law, good, bad, or indifferent. Here are the realities of it. If you look in, there's 4 areas that I think is really important that we get everybody to understand. And Thomas, you pay attention. You've got occupancy tax that we just implemented that should be bringing in, according to conservative estimates, about $268,000 annually that can be used on the capital side. So that's perpetual, only going to get more, not less. Because if we do what we're supposed to do, somebody's going to build another hotel or two. We've got debt payments that are coming off of us. I think 2026, Peggy verified this for me. There's $488,000 in debt payments that we'll make our final payment on in 2026. And we have some lease obligations that are going to be coming off at about $250,000, maybe a little bit less than that in 2025. So when you start looking at replacing debt service, old debt service with new debt service, or adding a monetary instrument that we have not had up to this point, we're starting to gain on it at a pretty rapid pace. So my point behind all this is you've just covered about $12, $13, $14 million worth of debt payment right there. And I could probably have a couple of other discussions that there is a path that is much better than that. Certainly when you look at our revenue stream through December, it's been pretty brisk, and I do understand that some of that's front-loaded, so maybe I ain't going to lean on that. But we're looking to be very positive on the revenue stream side. That coupled with the fact that we don't, we ain't gonna borrow all this money day one. So when you really look at this, the potential of tax increases to cover this could be several years down the road at worst, and maybe many years down the road at best. But we've got a pretty good head start. And assuming that the economy continues to grow, we don't have any major hiccups, we may find a way that we can grow ourselves through this without having to cause an operational stress on city operations. And Harold and I had a discussion about that, because we know how important that is. But my point is, there is a funding mechanism that is already presenting itself to us that is going to lessen the burden on the taxpayer. And with a little luck, maybe we could see our way through some other funding sources as well, but it would be years at best. Is that fair, Craig, on the borrowing side?
And the interest rate that we...
The LGC, the legislation changed recently, and so I think there's one that's actually going on the ballot tomorrow, but otherwise, we're going to be one of the first to put it, to have a GO bond, if the council chooses, in November. And we are required, like you said, to put the principal amount we're borrowing and the projected interest, total interest that we would pay, and then per $100,000 of property, what the tax rate implication would be. The LGC has developed what they call a safe harbor policy, which we're going to have to use the interest rate for the ballot, which is 5.344, which is the highest interest rate on any borrowings for GO bonds in the past 20 years. However, I did speak with bankers this weekend. I think it's important for all of us to be aware. Right now, it would be issued at 3.5, so
2%
significant less, and all the economists are projecting that the rates are going to be cut, and so I'd be really surprised if we weren't down to when we actually, if we issued, like, if council chose to put the streets on the ballot, and we want to get that issued as soon as possible, we issued that. I'd be surprised by next February of 25 if it wasn't even down to 3%, you know, or less. So there's that factor to keep in mind.
And again, we do have to, for all transparency, we have to show worst case.
Absolutely right. And I totally understand that, but I think we owe it to the public to have a plan.
Yes, sir.
Not just relying on.
Yes, sir.
I think our conversation today is that the interest rate, the first interest rate you mentioned, Peggy, that's the worst case scenario. Okay. So when you start talking about with the law costs going down to the LGC, and LGC is in a flux situation right now, frankly. New treasurer will come in. Members have gone off. They've lost tons of staff. And they're in a really difficult situation. But I believe that, you know, we've got to be just careful to understand that the question is going to be is this, and what I've seen in the recent last year or two is you can't project inflation. You can't project what, let's say, the $25 million for a recreation center, what would that buy now compared to what it may buy 2 years out? It's going to be different, unfortunately. Now, streets, you can get done quickly. Paramount, I'm not sure what the schedule is in terms of construction, steel and design. I have no idea what construction will begin.
So this goes to November for a referendum. If you wanted to start soon after, you could start first quarter 25, and it would be geared up for that. And then from there, you've got another,
The design is going to be done, so be ready.
Yeah, I mean, the question is going to be is, where you are, you're not going to, maybe going to save some money there. But I believe the one thing that I've seen, especially on sports complexes, is this. The design for that's really important because
what tends to happen, the design has a lot of input from all these groups, and it gets way bigger than what your proposed budget, even 25 million can be. And I can tell you some now, recently this has happened, it can blow up in a hurry. So I think if you shoot at that number for that particular project, you need to be careful in terms of what you propose to build. Keep that in mind. I saw it happen in Kernersville. Because what happens is that this thing gets momentum, and then everything starts adding in. There's additional gyms being asked for. There's different things being asked for, and there's some beautiful facilities that have been built. I mean, just gorgeous. But that's the only issue that I would see here is, you know, the $25 million number. If we're going with that number now, it's public. Okay, do we, you know, what do we think we can get for that? If we want to go straight bond and have no other payment doors. Yeah, that's the question too.
And that's part of the discussion we've had a lot with staff is about programming. And if we do decide to go this direction, you know, we need to relook at the last plan, what was 2017, to see how valid that is and what needs to be updated and what doesn't need to be updated.
2017 and now is going to be a big difference.
Right.
Let's be honest, there's construction.
Oh, no, we're talking just programming.
Okay.
Yeah, just programming from 2017, what was looked at for the Western Sports Complex.
Well, the Western Sports Complex, and I've always been advocate of this, is that, if I'm not mistaken, the last 2 times I've checked, the center point of the city of Burlington continues to move west. I was told about 6 months ago, at Grove Park School, Jim mentioned today, he looked at it and it was where?
Somebody told me it was just east of CVS Farms.
Okay, here's the point. There's no indoor recreation facility west of City Park. There's no gym west of Broad Street Gym. Now, if you would take the population of this
The only
community,
other one would be Cornell Center that way.
there's no gym.
That's correct.
There's no gym, but only a facility. If you take the percentage of population west of City Park, I don't know what it is comparatively now of the city. I'm not sure we know what that is. But I'm willing to bet you it's substantial. And this will be an opportunity. If the citizens vote no, they vote no. But, you know, I think that's a point we've got to consider as our community tends to grow both west and south. Nothing about going east and north, but then the east and north, a lot of them are just tied in because of other communities. You can't grow east more for Graham. North, you can grow some to the north. But traditionally, and Bob, you've been here longer than I have, but most of our growth has gone where? West.
So,
and south.
West and south.
Yeah.
and talking about paving, so we have baked into the budget about the 1.6 million.
It has been, but we've not fully gotten there in the last few years.
Yeah, we cut it back to 900,000 or something when.
It was cut back to 9.
Yes.
Last year.
Yeah, so, give us an idea of how many miles of road does 15 million get you?
55.
That's roughly about 55 miles.
Wow.
What do we have to say, 200?
Yeah, right now, we're growing every year, but you're a little over 200, 215 miles about probably this year on our path to what we'll end up with.
How much catch-up are we having to play here? Or in terms of time, how far are we behind? Year, 2 years?
Realistically, probably further than that. Since you had the last resurfacing bond, you paid, that was $10 million. Part of that was sidewalk. And that got us way up. Of course, then it was funding to resurfacing kind of went down right after you got way up because it was easy not to resurface and continue doing maintenance and preventive maintenance on stuff. And so really you started deteriorating ever since the original or the last resurfacing bond. Pavement deterioration is not linear.
So, you know, those first 5, 6 years, you don't see a lot of fall off, but then it's kind of like a roller coaster. Once it starts going down, it gets a lot steeper. So the deterioration increases over time if you're not keeping that minimum number up each year.
In current dollars, you need to spend about $2 million a year to maintain your rating, so that's about 7 years.
Is there a certain score, is there a certain range? What is that range that you just mentioned?
So we rate streets about every 3 to 4 years. We drive streets, we rate the whole city. Kind of a goal that we try to obtain internally is we'd like to, you know, be in the mid-80s. Right now, you're probably pushing mid to upper 70s is our current rating. And so it's just a matter of at $2 million a year, you can maintain about wherever you're at. So if you increase yearly to $2 million now, you could stay in the 76 to 78 range.
But a third party is rating, right? Third party is rating our streets.
Yes. And so, of course, we have input too with engineering staff. The company or us that are in conjunction with them. So the last rating system was actually they took video and still pictures and they drive every street and then they can look through those still pictures along with their visual observations and apply ratings based on different types of cracks in the streets, different distresses. And then city staff will also review their ratings and kind of consult, those are kind of checks and balances in place. But we always have a third party that does that investigation and that rating system.
How many miles of dirt road do we have in the city? 8 miles?
Yeah. Gary said that like he's been done.
I think Gary answered that question.
Fired that right out.
Gary was definitely proactive, great. I was definitely hoping to see some sidewalks be included in our bond, just some residential, just to improve the quality of life. I know that for the 2017, there was a study that was done that actually asked residents, what was the sidewalks on the top of your list. And I was like, I think it was 89 to almost, it was 3 questions, 89 to almost 94%. Everyone agreed they wanted sidewalks. So I was really hoping, I brought it up, that if we were going to spend this money, I think my kids would be paying for this in 20 years. My kids and your grandchildren. So I was hoping to see the community actually finally see some things that were immediate. For $4.5 million, I think it was the new sidewalk construction per pedestrian plan. It's 1.5. And then continuing the Greenway construction is going to be $3 million. I know that that's not on there, but I definitely wanted to make sure that everyone knew I was definitely in favor of that. But it did not make the list.
Yeah, I think there's 2 pieces. There's actually 3 pieces to some other things that staff wanted to put to the forefront of our thinking. And obviously pre-COVID, we talked about the PD facility. And it hadn't magically taken care of itself. But there was some facilities discussion when we started looking at all the things. And I think, at least in my mind, from perspective of police and fire and what we need from facilities and storage and that type of thing, we probably need a comprehensive facilities review to just say, hey, this is what the city owns. This is what we have, and this is where we're at on maintenance, because buildings are kind of like roads. If you don't maintain them, they're going to jump up there and cost you a bunch of money. And we've seen that in recent months with school system facilities. The ADA plan improvements is going to be a federal mandate, it's an unfunded mandate. we've already started working on it without a formal plan. Isn't that right, Greg?
We have, we will be bringing you a formal plan in a month that has to be approved, or well, that should be approved.
So hopefully there will be some type of funding mechanism that maybe will be successful at lobbying for, because that's a pretty large unfunded mandate. And, quite honestly, I don't know of any municipality that can just afford that. And if it's costing us $8, $10, $12 million, what's it going to cost a much larger group? And then when you look at sidewalk construction and greenway construction, we've got our UDO. We're leveraging a lot of our development to put a bunch of that in now. Isn't that right, Noel? I mean,
Yeah, we require developers to comply with the Greenway plan and the sidewalk plan. Mike and Brian review those plans and ensure compliance with those plans.
Yep, and then if you look at the grants that we have been fortunate to get have been centered around sidewalks and greenways. And that seems to be a much easier grasp to get grant money from. So in my eyes, I would much rather see that money go towards sidewalk maintenance and repair of what we got now. And that's why I just didn't have it on my list. But I just think there's other funding mechanisms for that piece that is going to take care of itself. And what is our sidewalk budget now?
Sidewalk budget for maintenance or new?
Yeah.
Maintenance is 240, yeah.
240.
That was added to the capital. I think we had 30 in our regular budget.
Yeah, and think about this. You're getting ready to see sidewalks all the way down Almonds Road.
Yeah, so the main projects that are funded, University Drive, right, on Church Street from University to West Road, you'll see a multi-use path and a sidewalk. Grantham Hill Road, that's funded, so that, when that gets constructed, multi-use path on one side, sidewalk constructed. Correct me if I'm missing something like Almonds Road, same thing. So with those three projects, you will see some significant pedestrian improvements, and the Huff Mill Road intersection, you're going to see some additional pedestrian improvements for that. And the city's paying our portion of that.
Yeah.
So we have municipal maintenance, municipal agreements with the state, where we had to contribute to our portion of those projects.
Yeah, and we're still using CDBG monies for some occasion, are we not?
Correct.
Having them in the areas where there's not a lot of transportation is my biggest concern. Because if you put a sidewalk, you said Almonds Road, I'm quite sure that everybody there actually is driving and using their cars, and they're only using, if the sidewalks are there, they're using for exercise. I'm talking safety, life and death. Especially after seeing the report, the bicycle report, the accidents.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Almonds Road quite a bit. There's a fair amount of pedestrian activity there. More than you would think, and certainly a lot up around the interstate area. That south of Mebane Street, there's a lot of, an enormous amount of foot traffic there. The one area that I think I see most dangerous is, I don't know if anybody's noticed it, is Huffman Mill Road.
Absolutely.
Huffman Mill Road is got to be the most dangerous street for us to walk on, and there are people walking every day. It's a path walk up through there. So we've been pretty successful at working on the PED plan and working on we've got a priority list still right now. So we've chipped away at it. Yeah, I just think.
I just wanted to add that, just to make sure that definitely that Burlington realizes, because I know that I've heard that concern for years. It's an ongoing concern. So I want just to make sure that it's on the record. I am for it, but it's just not going to make it for this bond.
Well, I tell you something else this is a challenge too. Some of our older neighborhoods, small home built, is that the lots are small.
the right of way is not there. I mean, technically, you can go in already in some really small yards and take away that in terms of putting sidewalk in, because unless you have curb and gutter, you got a ditch. And if you gotta go off that ditch to put a sidewalk in, then you can take a fairly substantial amount of somebody's front yard. I'm missing something, no?
No, you're not. I think in some of those situations, it gets a little cost prohibitive or can be perceived to be that, because really to make it work, then the right away you've got to pipe the ditch.
Right, that's right.
And so that adds.
I remember when we
curb
looked
gutter and
at taking a bicycle from Elon, bed path from Elon to downtown, we looked at Saddle Club at one time.
right.
As an option, it's just not feasible.
That's right.
Yeah, that's
For
good.
Saddle Club, you can't,
You just have to pipe it. It was not very cost efficient at all.
And Saddle Club gets an awful lot of pedestrian traffic to be on the kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, but as a side note, I'd like to see our priority list. We get a copy. Updated copy.
Which one?
Of the sidewalk priority list.
I have it, that's where I had located the areas that was proposed, and I think they're great areas, but I think the priority list is outdated though. Maybe
Yeah.
22.
Yeah, what's in the plan, staff has, kept that up to date over time, and there was some additional, when transit came on board, we added some points, you could get points for transit, how close you were to a stop or what, so that spreadsheet may look a little different than what we planned, but it's generally the same, but we have added segments.
So can we use 5307 money for sidewalks at bus stops?
We did, when we first started the transit system, because all the buses were new, so we rarely get some FTA federal funds for sidewalks.
Right.
And so now we're really focused on replacing buses, so there's really not a lot of 5307 monies left for sidewalks at this point. So
Yeah, but we
very
could,
similar.
if that pool of money got a little deeper, we could use it. It is eligible.
It's eligible.
Yeah. How far in the direction of the bus stop? Is it a limit?
There's a logical limit when we go through our reviews with the feds, certainly less than a half mile, but there's some standards for that, for both bike and pedestrian. So yes, it can be used around and in the vicinity of routes and stops.
Well, if you look at it that way, then the concept of trying to add some sidewalks to the bus stops makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does, because
Because
you're
the
riding the
residents
bus, then you
They
obviously are walking through the
They
neighborhood.
can get to the stops, I mean,
And there's funding mechanisms out there for that, like 5307 monies that would not be burdensome to our taxpayer, but we could leverage other dollars for that. And I guess that's where I was going with it, rather than, we're really good at finding monies. We just heard a great presentation from our lobbyists about that. So let's just keep digging and working on that priority list. I'd like to see the list to see if maybe we need to weigh in on reprioritization.
We can do that, and also remind you that Juanetta and Mike are constantly, putting in pedestrian projects into the STEP process to try to get funded there. So occasionally we'll pick up one there, they do this every couple of years.
especially in some communities with elderly and also maybe financially challenged.
Mhm.
The concept of the Link Transit is, I think what got us confused somewhat around in this county has been active, which is you come in and someone goes to your house and picks you up. That's not really practical, guys, financially, if that's the case. So my point is that to me, it could be a priority, is trying to push our transit system is in residential neighborhoods, if we can put some sidewalks in to get people to those bus stops, where they can walk to the bus stop. That's the whole concept of mass transit. Am I wrong?
You're correct.
this.
Grows your ridership and it opens up other opportunities in neighborhoods and economic development.
That's right.
I totally agree there, but there's a time where if you're walking in a certain neighborhood, or if you live in a certain neighborhood, or you're not riding transit and you're going, let's say, Maple Avenue, the Petersburg residents, they're walking the food line. They're walking to the gas station. So they're not using the bus to get there. And it creates a danger. It's a risk. Because they don't have transportation and they're walking. I think we've done good with Raw Hut, because there's been several accidents for years. It's been, since I've been alive, 42 years. There's been several accidents, deaths there. There is sidewalk on one side.
Yep.
So the progress, I definitely, salute the progress. There's just so many more neighborhoods like that, because there are those who live by the park. Guess what? They're walking to DP's. Back in the day, they had a pharmacy there. They're walking there. And even with transit, if you live in a certain neighborhood, you're not going to use transit for your simple needs neighborhood. And like in the bicycle report, the roads are right there. It shows where the sidewalks are needed. It's the same roads.
I would like, that's piqued my curiosity now. I'd like to compare pedestrian accidents with what our prioritization is. Take a look, is it up to date?
We'll take a look at it and we'll bring it back at a work session. Just in, big numbers, there's 300 miles of roadway in Burlington between city and state.
Yeah.
Times 2. Because you got two sides, that's 600 miles. We've got about 100 miles of sidewalk, so we're about 1/6 of the way there. And just to give you, there's tons of needs if you're really trying to.
If safety is our priority, and it is, obviously it is, then let's take a look at that, because as we're targeting federal monies for projects like these, or other revenue possibilities, let's be sure it's going to the area that's most dangerous.
That's the only recommendation I was definitely wanting to make sure that we.
I agree wholeheartedly.
My taxes went up, I just paid a huge deficit. I'm giving him credit about it. He probably knew I was going to mention it. My taxes paid that thousands of dollars that we were not expecting towards our escrow. But guess what? If I can look and know that people who can't afford to drive, and they're living in certain areas, and they're going to be safer, they're not going to be hit by a car on these busy highways, especially with $4.5 million, okay, go ahead and increase that. My husband and I, and I'm pretty sure a lot more people do not mind paying that extra, the $4.5 million, especially during a conversation of discussing $63.5 million.
And Nolan, do we have any idea what the requirements are, what that gets us every year in sidewalks?
We have to look at that. I could probably run some numbers there.
I'd like to know that.
That's what I wasn't sure of. With this plan of this $4.5 million, I wasn't sure if that was in relation to the sidewalk plan that I saw. I'm not sure if I have the information for this exact 4.5. I think I was just seeing a sidewalk. I'm not sure if it's the same, if the numbers are related to the older plan for sidewalks.
So Nolan, the bond package here, $1.5 million is just to repair existing sidewalks, right?
Correct. Just like we do a, pavement condition.
Right, yeah.
We did, internally, remember Mr. Drew, he walked all of our sidewalks.
Yeah.
And we scored them and we identified all the hazards. So we've been picking away at it with the funding we have. We just really feel like we need to make some headway on that. As sidewalk issues continue to present themselves.
Well, I know sidewalks gonna be in older communities anyway.
Yes. Not all, but yeah.
Most of them gonna be in older communities.
This sidewalk right here?
$1.5 million sidewalk Main Street Air is gonna be in older communities.
Yeah, they're going to be the ones that's been there the longest.
Yeah, that's right.
But that I didn't know. I wasn't aware of that, Craig.
Well,
for some of the older communities.
Yeah,
This 1.5 for the eliminate that, well, yeah, if you're eliminating, that's be a pretty self-explanatory, because those are gonna be the neighborhoods.
McKinney Street would be one.
I would love to see it. It wasn't on the list though. From what I've seen, this one, I'm not sure if that's an updated.
You talking about out of this one, for these sidewalks?
Mhm.
Yeah.
But you're right, McKinney would be a great, I didn't see them on there, but.
But no, McKinney Street has it, it's one of the older neighborhoods, Harold was speaking.
That's my point. I think that money I would think would go, because the sidewalks are, you know, at that age and.
That's been there forever. We used to walk home from school there. So,
So Craig, at this point, is the ask to move forward with it, go put your next slide up. So is that what we would be?
We would, when we would bring you back the preliminary findings resolution, it would be based upon the 6 projects and the 2 categories. And then that's what we would work on moving forward to get us to November.
Okay.
This is a very high-level
Mhm.
calendar. There are some key,
The June, I'm assuming, is the key.
the June is the key, and July. Since there's only one meeting, council meeting in July, that one is key too.
Okay.
But if we delay too long, we're going to run out of time, and that was part of our
Run out
concern.
of time, let's go.
Absolutely. That June date is really well, May and June. Push.
The procedures again have changed, and the June is formality, filing the application with the LGC. After, if what goes on the ballot is approved, then we go back to the LGC and said the voters have approved these GO bonds to get their approval.
so what do we need to do to move forward?
Just give it a thumbs up, move forward.
Yep.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay.
And if, Nolan, if we can get that information on the sidewalks, let's take a look at that. Get some of that information together so that we can figure out another way to address that one. Okay, next item is item I, voluntary non-contiguous annexation request, 2252 and 2254 Pinecroft Drive, parcel ID 127290.
Good evening, everyone. So we received a utility request for water and sewer. This is for an existing single-family home. It's a detached unit for a duplex. And the utility connection has been reviewed and approved in accordance with our procedures. As you are aware, this item has to come to you for consideration for annexation. But based on the location, we are not making the recommendation for annexation and requesting that it be put on the agenda for tomorrow night for deferral.
Okay, is everybody good with that? All good. Is that the only one you have? Okay.
For that, yep.
And next, we've got boards and commissions report. We've got one rezoning application, right?
Yep, that's it. This is the parcel, let me see if I can zoom out a little bit, located on Kirkpatrick Road, just south of Grand Oaks Boulevard. The request came in from the applicant. The property is currently zoned medium-density residential. You can see it's adjacent to Ethan Point. Another property to the north and east that was rezoned from MDR to HDR last year. 2 years ago now. So the applicant has made a request to rezone the property to high-density residential as well. This would obviously increase the number of units and density for different types of residential. And while it is inconsistent with the future land use designation, which is shown here in purple, much of the area is also inconsistent. So staff has recommended this rezoning
Is everybody good with that request? Okay.
Thank you very much.
That gets, there's a whole, we have traffic commission. Ryan, you want to talk about the, am I right on that? Yeah. South Spring Street loading zone recommendation.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council again. So the request is brought by Ally Ingold, who is the property manager of Mayhoe. The request is for a 45-foot loading zone, just 20 feet south of the intersection of East Moorhead Street and South Spring Street. This is consistent with other loading zones within the downtown. Specifically, one that comes to mind is right in front of Danny's Cafe on Front Street. We're going to enhance the situation. As you can kind of see, there's a car right here, and as part of our ordinance, no parking signs to enhance the situation of no parking at 20 feet within the intersection, as well as there's only about 26 feet of pavement out here. And so to put no parking within this block so that we can still have two-way traffic as well as on-street parking. We lose about 2 spaces, but it is reverts back to a normal parking space outside of 6 p.m. and before 8 a.m. There has been no parking along this side, so we don't feel like we're taking away any parking right now. That was actually one of John Glenn's last yeses from the Traffic Commission now.
So this is coming as a recommendation?
Yes, it was actually approved at the February 15th Traffic Commission, and we're asking it to be placed on consent agenda.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Brian? Everybody good? Put that on the consent agenda.
Thank you.
City manager's report.
Councilman Walt asked me earlier if we could go in closed session to discuss some items.
We've been here 3 hours.
If Councilman Wall said no,
withdraw that.
Then I have nothing this evening.
If there's nothing else, let's stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Lot of work. Here, Daddy.